Hi there, how you doing? My name is Jesse Stewart, and I was watching Tim Urban's speech earlier, and he stole one of my slides. I had this slide that showed the difference between the male brain, the women's brain, and my brain. In the male brain, you open it up, the animation comes out, and it shows a bunch of boxes that are all nice and neat and tidy. In the male, the box comes out, you open it up, you deal with what's inside it, you close it back up, you put it in, you grab the next box. So then it closes up, then it goes to the women's brain, and just spaghetti falls out. And I don't think that's necessarily true, but spaghetti falls out showing how everything's twined together. Then I go to my brain. When it opens up, little monkeys just jump at you in your face. So I'll do my best to stay a little bit more on track. But first of all, the title of my speech goes around the phoenix bird. And for me and most cultures, the phoenix bird is a bird that once it reaches its culmination, it's in existence, it bursts into a ball of fire, comes down to the ground, and then out of the ashes of good rises something new and something better. And then this continually recycles and repeats to the idea that you essentially have nothing but goodness left over. When I was 21, if you would have told me graduating from college, if you said, hey, at 35 years old, you're going to have started your own company with the idea of ensuring never another American POW, you'd retired from the Army at 31 years old, having become an Army Ranger, commanded 149 of those, been a college professor, and done all the things I would have done, I would have said, you know what, how do I get that Powerball ticket? And do I care what the cost is? Absolutely not. But then if you would have asked me, what if you got all that? Would you be willing to let it all go down to the ground in order to fulfill your true personal legend? So in terms of my path to this Phoenix project, parents got divorced when I was 5 years old. My first memory was being in Orlando, Florida, and watching the Challenger space shuttle blow up right in front of me on a kindergarten field trip, and being really confused why everybody was crying and distraught, and just not really understanding, but acknowledging something's happened, now we need to move on with life. So we move up to Washington State, mother relieves my father, and what proceeded to happen was several men that were introduced in my life that were extremely abusive, but I was a young kid looking for a father. And my biological mother ended up marrying the most abusive of those, and what it forced me to do was surround myself with this fortress and protect myself. And go fast forward to my freshman year of high school. I'm sitting at about 119 pounds. I know it's hard to believe now, 5'3". And so I'm like, you know what? There's no freshman on the wrestling varsity team. And I can beat those 5 kids down to 101 pounds. So I cut down to 101 pounds, end up making it, and I go out for our first wrestling match of the season. And I took all of that anger, all of that resentment, and all of that bitterness and honed it in to that one match. And when that whistle blew, normally with wrestling, if you've ever seen it, people will back off a little bit, slap each other around. I just attacked this guy and ended up pinning him in 3 seconds and had 5,000 people clapping for me. And when I got up, I looked and I realized, you know what? Here is the secret to life. Just win. And that became my first addiction. Now, and got a kiss from the senior cheerleader coming off the mat. So I realized, and it wasn't about necessarily being liked, but about isolating myself. So what I do next, realize, hey, you know what? There's no varsity athletes in the AP classes. Now, trust me, I did not come anywhere close to testing into the AP classes. But my regular English teacher was a basketball coach, and I shamed him, basically saying, hey, you are not capable of wrestling. You can't come to one of our practices and survive. And finally made his life so miserable that he let me go just to get rid of me. And so then all of a sudden, I'm the only athlete with the smart kids, and I'm the only smart kid with the athletes. So I had everybody fooled. But once again, it was out this idea of just isolating myself. And I immediately stopped being a human being and became a human doer, which I personally believe is the absolute most dangerous addiction, especially when you take 700 of those types of people, put them in a unit called Army Rangers, and say, here's a bunch of airplanes, a bunch of guns, a bunch of ammunitions. Try not to make us look too bad on the geopolitical stage. So essentially what I had was the perfect conditions for the perfect storm. So fast forward to my senior year of college, 9/7 or 9/8 of 2001. I'm in visiting my aunt and uncle in New York City, and they take me up to the top of the World Trade Center for brunch. It's a place I wanted to go, so we go up there, we have brunch, get the picture taken, top of the World Trade Center, and I head back to the University of Washington to start my senior year of college. And on 9/11/2001, about 5:13 a.m. in the morning, down in the gym working out, I'm watching the World Trade Center fall that I just ate at brunch a couple days prior, and realized, you know what? This whole ROTC thing, this whole Army thing is for real. So I get commissioned, and I become part of the first commissioning class of officers knowingly going to war since the Vietnam War. So I get in the Army, and at this point, I had never been told no. I had never failed. I had never been cut from a team. I hadn't been told, you still didn't make the requirements for AP classes, so you're not going to take the AP test. I just continued to do it. So I get commissioned, get the opportunity to be infantry, and get a Ranger School slot. Fortunately, make it straight through, and then I go on to the first part of the Iraq War. 2 weeks into the invasion, and keep in mind, when you show up as a new officer in a unit, you are told, listen, your first evaluation is going to be middle of the road because we get top block, middle block, or bottom block. And just get over it, accept it now, and move on with your life. So 6 months in, and keep in mind 2 weeks into the deployment, my truck had been blown off a bridge. I went down with it, spent about 4 minutes underwater, which I'm sure ex-women in my life will say that proves I do have brain damage. And then I spent a few days in a coma, but then went right back out to the fight. And that was honestly what differentiated. It had nothing to do with how good I was, how good of a shot was. It was just that I could handle pain more than others. And so 6 months into the deployment, I have my initial evaluation with my battalion commander, who's now a 3-star general. And he sits me down, and he says, you know what, Jesse? I'm about ready to screw you over. And I'm like, great, what did I do to cause this? As I'm thinking in my head. And he puts the evaluation down, and it's marked top block. And I'm like, wow, I thought this wasn't possible, sir. And he says, here's the problem. Anything less than perfection from you now on will be considered failure. So as a 22-year-old kid, a little bit of pressure was put on me. And so, but I wasn't scared by it. I just said, okay, at least I know what the standard is now. And that's how I continued on. So fast forward to 2006, 2007, I get the opportunity to command within a unit that's now known as Task Force 300, the Spartans, and had the opportunity to command Charlie Troop, which is about 119 to 149 Rangers at any given time. And we went forward in the Diyala River Valley, which would have been the genesis for what's now known as ISIS. When I was there, it was ISI, the Islamic State of Iraq. And we fought those guys for about 7 months, and with our presidential unit citation we got from President Bush, the smallest unit since Vietnam to get that, credited us with adding the S to their name. So ISIS, you're welcome for the marketing help. But during that deployment, on March 17th, just done some great things, took down the initial stronghold, and a suicide bomber goes off 20 feet from me. One of my best friends, Ben Saban, jumped in front of me, and he shielded me. I still got hit 18 times on the left side of my body, and he died that day. I survived, got the shrapnel taken out, but once again would not take a knee. Went right back out to the fight, and then continued on. 2 weeks later, I lose nine guys in one day. And I remember going to my unit doc, who will be left nameless, and said, listen, man, I'm 26 years old. I just lost 9 guys in one day. This isn't normal. And he straight up told me, he said, Jesse, if you talk to anybody about it, you're going to lose your security clearance, you're going to lose your opportunity to command, and you won't be a Ranger anymore. And so instead, he gave me a little bottle of blue pills, Xanax, and that's how I was able to survive, because I was able to shut off those emotions. So I finished the deployment up. Unfortunately, lost 14 of my Rangers. 49 of us were wounded, to include myself. And finished the deployment, got all the awards, and I got back. And up until this point, I had not drank at all. But that first drink that I had when I got back was like, here is the solution to not feeling. Here's the solution to continue performing. So I ended up getting promoted a couple of years early to major, have all of the opportunities in front of me that I ever could have dreamed of, and I ended up losing a child. And so I can't talk to anybody about the 14 men I'd lost. I can't talk to anyone about my child. And then I have my 4th reconstructive knee surgery on my left knee, and wake up from that being told your career is over, and we're retiring you at 31 years old. So I retire, once again, haven't dealt with any of the stuff that I'd experienced. And my entire identity, like a lot of the athletes that I work with, was tied up in being a Ranger. It wasn't being Jesse Stewart. It was the Major, Ranger, young guy that had bypassed every hurdle in order to get to where he'd been. And when that was suddenly taken away from me, the civilian world had no idea what was coming to them. They thought they were getting a 31-year-old retired Major with 2 master's degrees that was going to go out and help them make a lot of money. And I did that to an extent. Got an opportunity to teach at Grand Canyon University in the business school, and of course thought I could save America's youth by espousing my combat wisdom, but hey, P.S., 18 to 22-year-old kids honestly don't care about that. So I go through that, and the first 2 bosses I had actually quit the company they'd been working for 14 years. And I later found out it was because of their intimidation of me. And I said, okay, well, I'm obviously the problem here, so I'm just not capable of working for somebody. So I start my own company, and I come up with a patent to track soldiers on the battlefield with the idea of never another prisoner of war. And so I move up to Colorado, start the company, have a contract initially on the table for an entire division, so sitting at about $250 million, and then I get served with divorce paperwork. Now, up until this point, I had not failed. When I interviewed in the civilian world, I interviewed with 15 companies. The first 3 were the only ones that I really wanted to work with. But when I got 3 yeses, it then became an addiction to not get a no. And so fast forward to 2016, I'm served with the divorce paperwork, and now I'm all of a sudden encountering the first failure in my life. Fast forward to 2017, the number of suicides from our unit matched the number that we had lost in 2007. And I realized I've got to do something about this, not because I'm necessarily here to save the world, but I'm very quickly going to become one of these statistics. And so I found myself as the highest ranking person to attend the Grand Island VA treatment facility for substance use. Wasn't going to admit that I had a problem, but knew that I needed to do something. So I get there, and I find myself in an empty classroom in the VA. And I just write down 4 things: mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And as I looked at those, I realized if I can't attack life on all 4 of these planes, I'm going to end up becoming one of the statistics. So I write down a bunch of stuff, and I sit back, and I'm really proud of myself because there's no white space because I'm doing this, and I'm covering up one of the words. Can you guess which one it was? The emotional. And so I simply went and put up there, I'm not going to say that I'm an alcoholic or a drug addict, but I'm going to just put 12-step groups. And that was my start. And that was when I had the vision of the idea of this phoenix, of me burning down to the ground and beginning to live life on all 4 of these planes. And so what that's allowed me to do since is allowed me to take those hard-fought ideas of resiliency and take them to guys like this, Steve Nyman, one of the most incredible Olympic athletes in the United States right now, top U.S. men's skier, who is attempting in 2022 to become the first 40-year-old to win a U.S. medal in skiing. Okay, guys like this buy into it, realizing it's a whole lot more than the physical side. It's a whole lot more than the mental side. Because what I've been able to show him and other team members of his is if you can find a way to push the mental, the physical will come along with it. If I can get you an extra 30, 60, 90 seconds in that workout, that's going to improve your capacity to win and produce results. So now at this point, I say to people like, oh, love what you're doing, all this stuff. I ask, why would you necessarily need to burn down to the ashes? What if it's possible to start your Phoenix project up here where you're at rather than coming all the way down where I came? Because I went down here because I had to. And I literally probably went to hell for about an 8-month period because that's where my guys were, the only people that I trusted. But I went down there and I survived it so I could help bring others back up. But here's what I ask you. Why not start your Phoenix project up here where you're already crushing it? No matter whether you're Tom Brady and the quarterback of the Patriots, or Steve Nyman, the captain of the U.S. men's ski team, or that father that's coaching his son and all those other kids that are looking up to you. And start living life on the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual planes of existence. Because trust me, my friends, I've tried just living on 1 or 2 of those, and it leads to utter failure. So I encourage you to take a look at what you're doing in life. And if not for yourself, which has got to be ultimately for yourself, what is the impact and the influence that you could potentially have for those around you, and most importantly, your kids? Thank you. Have a good day.